Yeah, that's better. Yeah. محمد وآل محمد صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد عجل فرجهم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم 2 فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كما أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكس في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم يرى الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
محمد وآل محمد الصلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار وخلق الجان من مارج من نار فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان رب المشرقين ورب المغربين فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان مرج البحرين يلتقيان بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يخرج منهما اللؤلؤ والمرجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان وله الجوار المنشآت في البحر كالأعلام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يسأله من في السماوات والأرض كل يوم هو في شأن فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان سنفرغ لكم أيها الثقلان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يا معشر الجن والإنس إن استطعتم أن تنفذوا من أقطار السماوات والأرض فانفذوا لا تنفذون إلا بسلطان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يرسل عليكما شواظ من نار ونحاس فلا تنتصران فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فإذا انشقت السماء فكانت وردة كالدهان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيومئذ لا يسأل عن ذنبه إنس ولا جان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يعرف المجرمون بسيماهم فيؤخذ بالنواصي والأقدام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان هذه جهنم التي يكذب بها المجرمون يطوفون بينها وبين حميم آن فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان ولمن خاف مقام ربه جنتان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان ذواتا أفنان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما عينان تجريان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما من كل فاكهة زوجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان متكئين على فرش بطائنها من استبرق وجنى الجنتين دان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهن قاصرات الطرف لم يطمثهن إنس قبلهم ولا جان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان كأنهن الياقوت والمرجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان هل جزاء الإحسان إلا الإحسان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان ومن دونهما جنتان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان مدهامتان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما عينان نضاختان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما فاكهة والنخل ورمان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهن خيرات حسان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان حور مقصورات في الخيام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان لم يطمثهن إنس قبلهم ولا جان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان متكئين على رفرف خضر وعبقري حسان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان تبارك اسم ربك ذي الجلال والإكرام اللهم صل على محمد
وعلى محمد ब्रदर एहसान खायम ज़ियारत के लिए कल पड़ी आज टाइम कम हो जाएगा कितनी देर होगी ज़ियारत का 10 मिनट लगेगा हाँ वो फिर बरसी का टाइम निकल जाएगा कल आप जल्दी आ जाइए शारद से आप पढ़िए आप पढ़ लो अगर टाइम रहा तो फिर पढ़ता हूँ आप लोग पढ़ लो
صلوات मैं हूँ दरिया पास है और मेरी जबी है मैं हूँ در عباس ہے اور میری جبی ہے. سب کہنے کی باتیں ہیں، سب کہنے کی باتیں ہیں، فلک ہے نا زمیں ہے. میں ہوں در عباس ہے اور میری جبی ہے. زخمی ہے مگر کرب و بلا، کتنی ہنسی ہے. زخمی ہے مگر کرب و بلا، کتنی ہنسی ہے. جنت کہیں دنیا میں اگر ہے تو یہی ہے. اتنا ہی یقین ہے تیری امداد کا مجھ کو، اتنا ہی یقین ہے تیری امداد کا مجھ کو. جتنا مجھے زہرا کی دعاؤں کا یقین ہے. کیوں مدحت عباس میں لکنت ہے زباں کو، کیوں مدحت عباس میں لکنت ہے زباں کو. دیکھو کہیں محفل میں سکینہ تو نہیں ہے. کب مشق چھدی یاد ہے عباس کو، لیکن کب مشق چھدی یاد ہے عباس کو، لیکن کب کٹ گئے شانے یہ انہیں یاد نہیں ہے. کہتے ہیں کہ بے تیغ بھی لڑتا ہے سپاہی، کہتے ہیں کہ بے تیغ بھی لڑتا ہے سپاہی. عباس کو ہاتھوں کا بھی محتاج نہیں ہے. میں ہوں در عباس ہے اور میری جبی ہے. صلوات.
دشا مولانا مولانا آپ کی قسمت میں تو لکھا ہو مولانا بھی تو
صلوات. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. عظم اللہ اجورنا و اجورکم بمصابنا بالحسین علیہ السلام وجعلنا وإياكم من الطالبین بسارہ مع ولیہ الامام المہدی من آل محمد علیہ السلام. صلوات. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. السلام علیک یا ابا عبداللہ، السلام علیک یا ابن رسول اللہ، السلام علیک یا ابن امیر المؤمنین و ابن سید الوصیین، السلام علیک یا ابن فاطمۃ سیدتی نساء العالمین، السلام علیک یا صار اللہ و ابن صارحہ والوتر الموتورہ، السلام علیک وعلی الارواح التی حلت بفنائک، علیکم منی جمیعا سلام اللہ ابدا ما بقیت. وباقی اللیل والنہار یا ابا عبداللہ لقد عظمت الرازیات وجلت وعظمت مصیبت بک علینا وعلی جمیع اہل الاسلام وجلت وعظمت مصیبتک فی السماوات علی جمیع اہل السماوات فلعن اللہ امۃ اساست اساس الظلم والجور علیکم اہل البیت ولعن اللہ امۃ دافعتکم عن مقامکم وعازلتکم عن مراتبکم التی رتبکم اللہ فیہا ولعن اللہ امۃ قاتلتکم ولعن اللہ المماہدین لہم بالتمکین من قتالکم باریت اللہ وإلیکم منہم واشیائہم واتباعہم واولیائہم یا ابا عبداللہ انی سلم لمن سلمکم وحرب لمن حاربکم الی یوم القیامۃ ولعن اللہ علی زیاد وعلی مروانہ ولعن اللہ بنی امیۃ قاتبات ولعن اللہ ابن مرجانۃ ولعن اللہ عمر بن سعد ولعن اللہ شمرا ولعن اللہ امۃ اسرجت والجمت وتنکبت لقتالک بآبی انت وامی لقد عظم مصابی بک فاسأل اللہ الذی اکرم مقامک واکرمانی ان یرزقانی طلب آثارک مع امام منصور من اہل بیت محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وآلہ. اللہم اجعلنی عندک وجیہا بالحسین علیہ السلام فی الدنیا والآخرۃ یا ابا عبداللہ انی اتقرب الی اللہ وإلی رسولہ وإلی امیر المؤمنین وإلی فاطمۃ وإلی الحسن وعلیک بمولاتک وبالبراءۃ ممن اساس ذلک وبان علیہ بنیانہ وجار فی ظلمہ وجورہ علیکم وعلی اشیائکم باریت الی اللہ وإلیکم منہم واتقرب الی اللہ ثم علیکم بمولاتکم ومولات ولیکم وبالبراءۃ من اعدائکم والناصبین لکم الحرب وبالبراءۃ من اشیائہم واتباعہم انی سلم لمن سلمکم وحرب لمن حربکم وولی لمن ولاکم وعدو لمن عاداکم فاسأل اللہ الذی اکرمانی بمعرفاتکم ومعرفات اولیاءکم ورازقانی البراءۃ من اعدائکم ان یجعلانی معکم فی الدنیا والآخرۃ وان یثبت لی عندکم قدم صدق فی الدنیا والآخرۃ واسألہ ان یبلغانی المقام المحمود لکم عند اللہ وان یرزقانی طلب آثاری مع امام ہدن ظاہر ناطق بالحق منکم واسأل اللہ بحقکم وبالشان الذی لکم عندہ ان یؤتیانی بمصاببکم افضل ما یؤتی مصابا بمصیبتہ مصیبتا معاظمہ وعاظم راضیاتہ فی الاسلام وفی جمیع اہل السماوات والارض. اللہم اجعلنی فی مقامی ھذا ممن تنالہ منک صلوات ورحمت ومغفرۃ. اللہم اجعل محیایا محیا محمد وآل محمد ومامتی مامت محمد وآل محمد. اللہم ان ھذا یوم تبرکت بہ بنو امیۃ وابن عاقلات الاکباد اللعین ابن اللعین علی لسانک ولسان نبیک صلی اللہ علیہ وآلہ فی کل موطن وموقف وکافہ فیہ نبیک صلی اللہ علیہ وآلہ. اللہم لعن ابا سفیان ومعاویۃ ویزید ابن معاویۃ علیہم منک اللعنۃ ابد العابدین وھذا یوم فارحت بہ آل زیاد وآل مروان بقتلہم الحسین صلوات اللہ علیہ. اللہم فضاعف علیہم اللعن منک والعذاب العلیم اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقف هذا وأيامه حياتي بالبراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم وبالموالاه لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظالم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تاب له على ذلك. اللهم لعن الإصابة التي جاهدت الحسين عليه السلام وشايات وبايات وتابت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وباقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزياراتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى آل ابن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم باللعن مني وابدأ به أولا ثم الثاني والثالث والرابع. اللهم لعن يزيد خامسا ولعن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجانة وعمر بن سعد وشمر وعلى أبي سفيان وعلى زياد وعلى مروان إلى يوم القيامة. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم الحمد لله على عظيم رازيات. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين عليه السلام يوم الورود وثبت لقدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا مهاجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. صلوات.
جزاک اللہ. May I request you all to please move a little forward, please. As you know, later, during the middle of the majlis, we don't have to have disturbance, so that beforehand we can all move forward. So the program at Al-Noor, inshallah, will continue till 21st of Ramadhan. At the moment, what we are listening to is the series on Quran and community by Brother Zaki Rizvi. He will continue to recite now one of the 5 lectures here, and then inshallah after that Syed Muhammad Rizvi will continue the sessions on Quran and Amirul Mu'mineen. You are all requested to please be on time. 6:45 the program begins with Tilawat al-Quran, followed by short mercy, and then the scholar, the speaker, he takes over the mimbar to render the lecture for the night. Before I invite Brother Zaki Rizvi, can I request you all to recite a Surah Fatiha for the marhumeen of today's sponsor of the Majlis and Iftari, Dr. Ghazamfar and his wife's family members. Please include all your marhumeen as well. Surah Al-Mubarak Al-Fatiha. Bismillah. Please welcome Brother Zaki Rizvi with a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Ali.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي إليه مصائر الخلق وواقب الأمر. نحمده على عظيم إحسانه ونير برهانه ونوام فضل امتنانه. حمدا يكون لحقه قضاء ولشكره عدا وإلى صوابه موجبا ولحسن مزيده مقربا. الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع المذنبين راحة للعاشقين والمراد المشتاقين شمس العارفين والسراج الصالحين نبي مصباح والعلم صاحب جود والكرم والله حافظه وجبرائيل خادمه والبراق مرقبه سدرة المنتهى مقامه قاب قوسين محبوب رب المشرقين والمغربين جد الحسن والحسين مولانا ومولاي الثقلين أبي القاسم محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. ثم الصلاة والسلام على جميع أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين المنتخبين المظلومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. وعجل فرجهم. واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم منكر فضائلهم غاصب حقوقهم ومراتبهم ومنزلتهم ومقامهم من يومنا هذا إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله الحكيم في قرآنه الكريم وهو أصدق القائلين قوله الحق: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. تلك أمة قد خلت لها ما كسبت ولكم ما كسبتم ولا تسألون عما كانوا يعملون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات وعجل فرجهم. We're talking over this series of 6 days about the community that we have around us and how that features in the Quran. When we talk about community, we spoke about this ayah in Surah Baqarah and we started looking at it yesterday. It speaks of accountability within a community. And we spoke yesterday of how odd this is. Why? Because accountability, we've always been taught, is an individual thing. I am accountable for what I do, you are accountable for what you do. We are all accountable for our own actions. But here Allah Azza wa Jalla, He's talking to a group of people. He's saying, you are all not accountable for what that group of people did. They're not accountable for what you and your people did. But it makes it seem almost as though I'm not accountable for what the people before me did, but my community, I'm accountable for them. We spoke about this yesterday. We're going to continue looking at this. Why? Why is there some level of accountability on me for what my people do, for what my community do? And we established yesterday what the different types of communities are. You have your Al-Noor community, you have the Idara community, the Haydari community, but then we can go broader. You've got the Shia community of Southwest London, then you've got the Shia community of London, you've got Muslim communities on top of that. We spoke about yesterday, football is a big community. All the supporters of any one particular football team, all those people who like football in general. You have the people who like to play, the people who like to watch. That's a community there in and of itself. Where you go to school, you build a community. Everywhere we go in life, we build a community. Now, am I to be accountable for the actions of each and every one of those communities or each and every one of the people in those communities? This communal accountability that we're talking about, where does it come into play? Why does it have an impact on me and my accountability when we're told again and again by Allah Azza wa Jal, on the day of judgment, you will be accountable for yourself? But here we get the idea that all of a sudden, no, it's not just me that I have to look out for, it's everybody else. Now, I use the example of a footballing community, right? Let's take just Arsenal, the team I support. 60,000 seats in Emirates Stadium. Let's say Premier League rules say 10% have to go to the away team, right? So that makes it 6,000. So 54,000 fans supporting Arsenal. They're all part of the community I'm part of. Am I accountable for their actions? Because what they do is very different to what I do. How a lot of them behave is very different to how I behave. Am I accountable for everything that they do or not? No. Why? Because I'm looking out for myself. And that sense of accountability as an individual, it still stands true, but how? The only reason that I'm accountable for my community is because what I'm accountable here for is not their actions, but how their actions impact and influence me. That's what we have to look out for. What my community do, how does that impact me? How does that influence me? And today it's that influence that I want to have a look at. And that influence is so key because there's so many different things that influence our lives. Things that we can't even realize, that we don't even understand, that we can't even tell. I'll tell you one, for instance, that you may not have even thought of, but it's there. The traffic in London will influence all of us at one point or another. If you're a driver, at some point you're going to get annoyed at the traffic. It's influencing your behavior in that moment. It's influencing your mood in that moment. And there's countless influences like that. The most obvious and the one that we always speak about is friends. But you're also influenced by your family, your culture. You're influenced by your religion. You're influenced by shaitan. You're influenced by TV. You're influenced by Netflix and movies and what you watch. You're influenced by the games you play. There's so many different influences. And we don't realize how much of an impact these influences actually can have on us. I'll give you an example. There's some family friends, and as a family, they started watching the series Top Boy. Now, for those of you not familiar with Top Boy, it's about the gangsters of London, right? North London, Tottenham sides. And this family, mashallah, all the kids very well behaved, very good. And I remember I went over to their house not too long after they'd begun watching it. And their daughter, this little 10-year-old girl, comes up to me, she goes, "Salam Ji, what are you saying?" I looked at her, huh? Where did that come from? And it's because what she was watching had an influence over her, and that's a very obvious influence, but there's much more subtle influences that we have as well. I'm going to divide up all those influences today into 4 levels of influence. How influential are these influences? The first level is zero influence. It has no bearing on you whatsoever, you have no bearing on it whatsoever. The second is what we call a gateway influence. We'll dive into what that is in a moment as well, but it's pretty much in the name. The third is an encouraging influence, and the fourth is a discouraging influence. And these are in order of how influential they are, from zero influence to something that discourages you from things. The first one we looked at was zero influence, the thing that has zero impact on you or your life whatsoever. The thing that has zero impact on what you do, how you do it, how you behave, your mood. Now, it's very difficult to find something in life with zero influence. Almost impossible, I'd say. But you have to ask yourself a question. If you find yourself in a place where there is zero influence, right? And I often say this, and I say this speaking about friendships, because when it comes to friendships, some people may see this as quite a cynical view, but I believe you have to be getting something from a friendship and you have to be giving something as well. If you've been friends for 10 years and at no point have you tried to improve each other, then what kind of a friendship really is that? So you have to be getting something from a friendship, right? And if you're not getting anything from that friendship, if there's zero influence between you and your friends, like I say, it's almost impossible, if not impossible. But if that is the case, then what is that friendship really doing for you? Is that a friendship in the realist sense? I'll give you an example that makes it all the more obvious. Where I work at Pearson, there's a rule. You can take a sabbatical, you can take an extended holiday, you can take extended time off, that's fine. But if your extended time off exceeds 3 months and there's nobody there to cover you, when you come back, there's not a job left. Your job's made redundant. If the company can go 3 months without your job being done by anyone, then that job's useless, right? In the same way, if there's something that we're going through in life and it's doing nothing for us at all, it's useless. And if there's something in our life, then it means we're exacting some kind of impact, some kind of effort towards it. And if you're getting nothing back, then what's the point? Sometimes we have to be a little bit selfish. Sometimes we have to be a little bit cynical in the sense that, what am I getting from this? Is this thing good for me or not? The first is zero influence. And the place where you will find zero influence is when? Yawm al-Qiyamah. Where every single person, be it brother from brother, be it parent from child, will distance themselves from the people around them. Why? Because on that day, the only thing anybody cares about is themselves. The only thing anybody cares about is me and what I've done in my life. They don't care about anybody else. That's the day where you'll see an element of zero influence, where there is no influence on what they did and what I did, because they are so worried about themselves, I am so worried about myself. This is the element of zero influence. The second one is what we call a gateway influence. A gateway influence is, like it says in the name, it opens up the gateway. It normalizes things. It makes things seem more okay. Now, I say this, and I say this with all of these types of influences. You have good influences and bad influences, right? So a bad influence, the most obvious example for gateway influence, I'll go with gateway, a gateway drug. A drug that seems largely inconsequential, or it has very small impact on you, but the reason that it's dangerous is because all of a sudden when you do this one drug, you're opened up to the world of drugs. You're opened up to all the drugs out there, and all of a sudden this becomes a gateway. It's like a door's open so that you can enter that world of drugs. And you can move on to more and more dangerous things, more and more consequential things. It's a gateway drug, right? But let's flip it the other side. There's bad influences and there's good influences. So let's look at on the other side as well. What's a good gateway? Normalizing something in a good way. I'll give you guys an example here. Madam. To somebody who is outside of the community of Azadari, outside of the world of Azadari, they might see Madam and find it very strange, very odd. Particularly the way we do it when we stand in a halqa, in sync, they might find it very odd. But now let's say they're friends with somebody who is inside that world of Azadari. They're friends with somebody who is passionate about Madam. They're passionate about it, they believe in it, they do it themselves, they practice it. They have a conversation with that person, and if they trust that person, they have a good connection with that person, after that conversation, you might find them thinking, well, yeah, I guess it makes sense, and I can see why they do it. We're not making them do martyrdom, no. But we're just normalizing it for them through our relationship with them, through our conversations. Somebody outside of the world of Azadari might find it a very strange concept, but an Azadar can become a gateway for them towards that. Like I say, we're opening them up to the world of it by making it seem more normal. The third type of influence is what? An encouraging influence. An encouraging influence is the influence that makes you do something. So the difference between the gateway, for instance, we spoke about martyrdom just now, is we're not making them do martyrdom, but we're opening them up to the world of normality of it. Here, an encouraging influence is something that actually pushes you to do something. It has a call to action. And the most obvious example, or the one that we usually use, is what? Peer pressure. Like I say, we have good influences, we have bad influences, and sometimes peer pressure can be good. You have the bad influences of peer pressure, and you'll see it all the time. I think one of the biggest examples that most of us will face in our life is particularly if we work in the corporate world, when everybody's going out for drinks on a Friday. And you're told, yeah, just come along. The entire company's going, or your entire department's going, everyone's going. There's a certain peer pressure there. They're telling you, come with us. And you'll find it's odd how we react to that in different situations, in different places. Sometimes we might simply say, oh, I've got football, I can't go, or I'm busy, I've got somewhere else to go. Sometimes we'll just accept and we'll go. It takes a certain strength of character to go, actually, no, it's against my religion to go to the pub. What, even if you're not drinking, even if I'm not drinking. So it takes a certain strength of character to say that, to do that. But there's that peer pressure pulling you towards it, telling you to go towards it. On the flip side, again, we have good influences, we have bad influences. I'll give you an example of good peer pressure. A few years ago, I was out on holiday with a few of my friends, all Muslims. There were 4 of us, 3 of us prayed regularly and on time. We were strict with it, 1 of us didn't. He had no interest in praying. The first day, we got there very early in the morning, we woke up for Fajr, prayed our Fajr, 3 of us prayed, he didn't. He stayed asleep. We got up in the morning, we went out, chilled, it got time for Zuhrain, 3 of us prayed, he didn't. He stayed in the corner on his phone. Maghribain time came, we prayed, he didn't. Day 2, same thing. 3rd day of the holiday, when it came for Zuhr time, he stood and he prayed with us. Maghrib time, he was a bit... Then we went on. As the days went on, we realized by the end of the holiday, this guy was praying 5 prayers. He was waking up for Fajr even though he was tired. He was making sure he was awake and alert for Isha and Maghrib. He was making sure that whatever we were doing at Zuhr, he's praying Zuhr. Why? Because he's seen 3 guys are doing it right there in front of him, and every time we were telling him, come, pray. We weren't berating him if he wasn't doing it, but we were telling him, come, pray with us, right? We're praying, you might as well pray. See, peer pressure can be good. Sometimes you can push people to do things which are good. And Allah Azza wa Jal, He wants you to. He's telling you to. He says in the Quran, let there be a group amongst you. Let there be a people amongst you who encourage others to do good and who call others towards good. Allah Azza wa Jal, He's calling on you. He's saying, look, not everybody's going to do this. Not everybody's going to be amongst those people. Not everybody's going to be the people who encourage goodness. You be that person. You be part of that nation. You be part of that community who encourage good. And as I say this point, I have to say, if we are believers in Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam, we have to recognize one thing. When he sets off from Medina on his mission, what does he say? He says, I am leaving to encourage good and discourage evil. And we also recognize that the mission of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is not yet complete. Until when? Until the zuhur of our Imam, Imam Mahdi ajjalallahu ta'ala farajhu sharif. Which means that if we want to be part of that mission in our everyday life, we have to be the ones who encourage good. We have to be the ones who act on that path as well. The 4th type of influence we spoke about was what? The type of influence that discourages actions. And the reason I said that this is more influential than the type of influence that encourages actions is because if you're set in your ways, it's much more difficult to take you away from something than it is to drive you towards something. It will be much more easy to pull someone towards something than it is to push them away from it. Why? Because we form habits, and those habits, they become intrinsic, and we find it very difficult to move away from them. But if you can discourage someone from something, then you have a great deal of influence over them. If you can pull someone away from something, you have a great deal of influence over them. And again, hand in hand, wherever we talk about Amr bil Ma'ruf, we talk about Nahyan al Munkar. Allah Azza wa Jal speaks in the Quran about Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahyan al Munkar. In the ayah I just recited a moment ago about let there be a people amongst you who call people to good. That goes on to say, and discourage people from bad. Allah Azza wa Jal tells us this, but not only does He tell us this, and this is the thing that we often forget, when we look at our 10 furu'a deen, the core basic wajibat that we have to follow throughout our lives, Amr bil ma'roof, Nahy anil munkar are in there. Throughout your life, if you see opportunities to encourage good and discourage bad, that is wajib upon you. It is wajib upon you to take that opportunity to do it. It's a wajib act, something you'll be questioned on the day of judgment. We can't forget that. And there's an ayah in the Quran where Allah Azza wa Jal, He speaks about those people who discourage others from good. Like we said, influences can be both good and bad. Here we're looking at a bad influence. Allah Azza wa Jal, He's talking about those people who discourage other people from good deeds. He says, and they are people who pray, and they are people who are religious, and someone comes and he pulls them away from it. He draws them away from it. What does Allah Azza wa Jal say about those people? He addresses them directly in the Quran. He says what? He says, you go and you bring your people. We will go and we will bring who? Who will Allah Azza wa Jal bring? He says, we will bring the wardens of hell. Hell, this jail, this prison, this cell that you can't escape. The wardens of hell are the ones who deal with not the people who are doing bad, the people who are discouraging good. And how do we discourage good? Again, I'm going to look at something we don't often realize we're doing. Because the obvious actions are there for all to see. It's the small, subtle things that we miss out on. The very, very easy way to discourage someone from doing something good is when they're Masalan, and we see it in Ramadan all the time, you know. Somebody started praying in Ramadan. There's no encouragement. Instead, you're laughing. Oh, you're praying? Since when? Since when did you start praying? Or the discouragement of, oh, he's only praying till Eid, and then after that he'll go back to normal. These little comments, these little things, they make a difference, they make an impact. This is discouraging people from doing good. We should encourage good as much as possible, discourage the bad. And we see that again and again. Discouraging bad is something that we often miss out on doing. And one thing that, and I'll mention this because this is something that I feel so strongly about, is ghiba, backbiting, gossiping. How many times have we sat down at the dastakhan after a majlis, after a jashan, after listening to zikr Muhammad Ali Muhammad, and people are gossiping, backbiting? It's not enough to not be a part of it. Step forward and say, should you be saying that? Step forward and say, why are you saying that? If you can't do that, then step up and walk away. Make a visible stand. And I'll finish with one story here. Me and my friends, when we were younger, we had a habit of gossiping a lot. We used to do it a lot, right? And our class, this was in Haydar in Madrasa, we were split. So we had the boys who did GCSE Arabic and we had the boys who did Quranic Arabic. Me and a few of my friends were in the GCSE Arabic class, a few of the boys were in the Quranic Arabic class. One day the Quranic Arabic teacher wasn't there and they had a lesson on gossiping, on backbiting, on ghiba, right? I wish I was there in that lesson, but I was in the GCSE Arabic class. We didn't, our timetable was normal. We studied Arabic that day. But every time after that us friends from the GCSE Arabic class, because we were all one group, right? When we were all together, every time we made a joke about somebody else, or we said something or made a snide comment about somebody else, we would laugh. The boys who were in that ghiba lesson, in that lesson about backbiting, they just wouldn't laugh. The first time you thought, oh, maybe my joke wasn't that good. Second time you thought, what's going on here? After a while, we started to notice, when it's these types of jokes, they never laugh. And genuinely, from then till now, and I'm so thankful for it, none of us friends engage in that kind of conversation anymore. None of us friends gossip or backbite. Why? Because those guys made an active stand without even saying anything. But they took an active stand to let us know that they disapprove of that. It's so easy to let things pass and let things slide, certain comments that people make or certain things that people do. But if we don't discourage it, then we're giving what's called tacit approval. Tacit approval is the approval you give when you are silent, when you don't do anything to discourage it. We have to avoid that massively. I'm going to finish on a hadith because the biggest influence we have in our lives are our friends, right? And we are also influences on our friends as well. So I'm going to finish on a hadith. It's a hadith by our fourth Imam, Imam Syed Sajjad Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajhum. He says there are 5 types of people you should not be friends with. 5 types of influences, in other words, that we should avoid. What are they? The first is the liar. Don't be friends with somebody who lies. The second is the one who is stingy. The third is the one who is a sinner. They are a transgressor. The fourth is the one who is stupid. And the fifth is the one who does not give the due rights to the people around them. And he explains why. The liar, self-explanatory. The one who is a sinner or a transgressor, because they will influence you and draw you towards that sin as well. The third was the one who is it slipped my mind as well. The third was a stingy, absolutely, because when you need help, they will not be there to help you. The fourth was the one who? Stupid, the fool, that's the one everyone remembers. Why? Because they'll try to help you, but in their stupidity, they'll do you more damage than good. And the fifth was the one who doesn't give the due rights to the people who deserve them. They don't give the haqq, the ghasiq. Now, I'm going to mention one last point and finish it right on this. Talking about influences and avoiding all those bad influences on us, bearing this hadith in mind, remember not to be a bad influence on somebody else as well. And the reason I say bear this hadith in mind is because a point that I once, it just came to me while I was reading this hadith and I found it quite nice, which I like to share, is the point where the fourth Imam tells this hadith is when he's talking to the fifth Imam and advising him on who to be friends with or who not to be friends with. So it then stands to reason that in the eyes of the fourth Imam, if we avoid being any of those five people, then we too are worthy of being the companions and the friends of our A'immah, of our fifth Imam. Now, if we can avoid being that bad influence, then we can automatically take ourselves into the circles of good influences and take ourselves into the circles of those who Allah Azza wa Jal says will reside in heaven and for whom there is a great reward. And with that in mind, recite aloud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. وعجل فرجهم. There are only a few minutes till namaz, so I'll make a very short dua. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إلهي بحق محمد وأنت المحمود، بحق علي وأنت الأعلى، بحق فاطمة وأنت فاطر السماوات والأرض، بحق حسن وأنت المحسن، بحق حسين وأنت قديم الإحسان. Oh Allah Azza wa Jal, allow us to avoid all those negative influences which are around us in this world. Oh Allah, allow us to be positive influences on those around us. Oh Allah, for all those around the world who are ill and suffering from ill health, grant them complete shifa. O Allah, for all those marhumeen who stood alongside us and have now left our ranks, grant them a place amongst the highest levels of Jannah. O Allah, hasten the reappearance of the Imam of our time. Allow us to stand alongside him when he returns. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع الدعاء.